It's time to replace that old dog-eared copy of John Palmer's How to Brew. Our friends at Brewers Publications recently published the 4th edition of How to Brew, and it's essentially a totally new book. The 4th edition clocks in at 600 pages, and every chapter has been updated and expanded. And there are 5 totally new chapters. Learn more and order a copy at brewerspublications.com. brewerspublications.com. Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, July 6th, 2017. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week we begin our coverage of HomebrewCon in Minneapolis with the Brulosophy crew and sampling for the Hop Chronicles and interviews in and around Club Night. If you're new to homebrewing or would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. If you buy any of our DVD combos, you get a free Basic Brewing bottle opener. And don't forget to get a copy of our Brewer's Logbook. You can use it to log and track up to 50 batches of beer. You can find me on Twitter. My username is Basic Brewing, all one word. We also have a Basic Brewing Radio and Basic Brewing Video page on Facebook at facebook.com/basicbrewing. Thanks again to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. Whenever you think of Amazon shopping, think of us first. Go to basicbrewing.com, click on our Amazon ad on the right-hand side of the page. We'll get a taste of whatever you buy, and it won't cost you any extra, but you'll be helping us to bring you this show, and we greatly appreciate your support. And your product might be mentioned at the end of the show. We also have associate links for Brew Your Own magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site as well. You can find our Basic Brewing iPhone app on iTunes, our Android app on Amazon.com. We have a Windows Phone app. We're on the BlackBerry Podcast Directory, and we're on the Stitcher app as well. We're on Google Play Music, and we're on the iHeartRadio app, too. And if you want to put a tip in our tip jar, some coinage in our virtual guitar case, you can go to basicbrewing.com/support, and thanks to everybody who's done so already. Man, it's been a while since I've done one of these things. I'm leaving stuff on the cutting room floor this week. This show is going to be a bit longer than usual because we got so much stuff to cover. Steve and I had a great time in Minneapolis. Steve volunteered to drive, and so I took him up on that, and he wanted to leave at 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning on the Tuesday before the conference. So we did. And it worked out great. We got through Kansas City before morning rush hour and rolled into Minneapolis at around 3 p.m. So good planning on Steve's part. And thanks to him for driving. The next day, the Wednesday before the conference, Kevin Welch from Boom Island Brewing Company took us on a tour of a few Minneapolis breweries. And we recorded interviews along the way, of course. We spent time interviewing mead makers Matt Whitey and Ryan Richardson for shows as well. We got to hang out with our good friend Bob Stemsky for quite a bit, and he brought us New Glarus beers and cheese curds from Wisconsin. And it was a great time and very productive for gathering excellent content, which you will hear in the coming weeks. We also got to spend some time with our sponsors, Desiree and Dave of High Gravity in Tulsa. Not as much time as we would have liked. But, there's so much going on around HomebrewCon, and it's easy to get pulled away. Dave told me that several of you at the conference actually came up to Desiree and Dave and thanked them for sponsoring this program, so I greatly appreciate that. Several of you also asked me about the high-gravity electric brewing systems, and yes, I really do like mine, and yes, it does perform as well as I talk about it here. In fact, about a month ago, for example, I brewed a 5-gallon batch of my cream ale for camping purposes later this summer, and I realized that I had forgotten to get a new pond pump to recirculate ice water through my immersion chiller. So I started the mash in my high-gravity brew-in-a-bag system and drove off to the hardware store, confident that the Warthog EBC 130 controller would hold the mash temp rock steady. And sure enough, when I got back about 45 minutes later, the numbers on the controller had not budged. And I'd say that sure beats wrapping the kettle in towels, quilts, and blankets and crossing your fingers that the temperature doesn't fall too much in mash time. So check out the full line of complete electric brewing systems and controllers at highdgravitybrew.com and use the code EBC75BB for $75 off your electric brewing order. That's EBC75BB at highdgravitybrew.com. And thanks again to Desiree and Dave. Okay, this episode is kind of a two-parter. In the second half, we'll wander the floor of Club Night and talk to such folks as Stan Hieronymus, Randy Mosher, and John Palmer. But in the first part, we spend some time with the guys from Brulosophy and took part in what they're calling the Hop Chronicles. And if you read the blog and follow their podcast, you'll know what I'm talking about. That was a lot of fun. And after that, we shared our hop timing experiment with them that you heard previously on this program. So we turned the tables on the Brulosophy guys. So you'll have to listen to their podcast, the Brulosophy podcast, to see how they did in figuring out which of our beers was which in our experiment. So check out the latest edition of the Brulosophy podcast to hear us again in that hotel room. So let's go to a room full of homebrewers with Marshall Schott, Malcolm Fraser, and the Brulosophy crew. It's deja vu all over again. I'm here in a room filled with Brulosophy folks. It's like, do you have this big an entourage everywhere you go, Marshall Schott?
James Spencer, we are like Velcro. That's what I tell people. We walk around and we just kind of invite people to join us because I think they know that we're going to be having a good time, drinking beer, and meeting cool people like you guys.
Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So what do we got going on here?
So today, rather than doing an experiment, which can be kind of difficult to travel with, we decided that what we were going to do is bring out a couple of our beers from the Hop Chronicles project that we work on, where basically we make single hop beers, and then we have blind tasters evaluate them purely for the hop quality, hop characteristics. And typically what we'll do is we'll start by asking people just to evaluate aroma, and then move on to flavor. And these two beers, Jake Houlihan, contributor from Brulosophy, he brewed them, so...
So what can you tell us about these beers, Jake, without spoiling?
So we don't really tell too much ahead of time. These beers are pretty much a smash beer. It's just basically 2-row, a little bit of Vienna, and then the hop that you're actually evaluating, clean yeast, and that's about it.
So now you sent out surveys to everybody, and now it turns into a classroom. This is a test. I've had nightmares about this. At least I'm not in my underwear. Not yet, anyway. So, so is that it? We just put our nose in the glass and take the first part of the survey, and then taste, and then take the second part.
That's basically it. The nice thing about the Hop Chronicles is that it's much more simple than in terms of actually getting people to do, gathering participants, gathering the data. The one thing about it, though, is it does take a little bit longer. We've got 14 descriptors. I believe it's 14 descriptors for aroma, and then we basically, like I said, copy and paste that and have people evaluate the same 14 descriptors for flavor. And so people tend to kind of focus on it. It might take 5 minutes, whereas the experiments might take a minute.
And good news, Steve, we can't get this wrong.
Thank goodness.
All right, so I'm going to shut off the thing, and we're going to do a little evaluation. We'll be back. Okay, so Jake, what are we going to do now?
All right, so we're going to go around the room. Everybody's taken the survey, and we're going to talk a little bit about the hop and see kind of what people thought the main descriptor was and maybe what style of beer you think it would work good in.
All right. I'm going to jump out there first. I'm going to say juicy fruit gum. All right. And since we've got like 30 people in here, unless you want to introduce yourselves, we'll just go with the descriptor. How about that? Okay, go.
I think it tastes like Starburst.
Floral and tangerine.
Just citrus altogether.
Kind of a mild tropical fruit.
How do you do in cantaloupe?
I got mild green fruits like a kiwi.
I got pear and candied lemon peel.
Hi, Andy Hall from Growler Farms.
Nicely done.
I got melon.
Janelle Hall, Growler Farms. I got clementine and dank.
I got floral and tangerine. I got spicy and floral.
I got floral and melon.
Yeah, I got melon and like a light, sweaty gym sock.
That was your upper lip.
Okay. All right.
I got beer.
Anybody? Did I miss anybody? Okay, so now do we want to talk about what it was?
Yeah, sure. So this hop is actually a variety from Hopsteiner. It's a fairly new one that's called 04190, so it's only a number right now. It's not actually a named hop. The descriptors they talk about are a little bit like herbal, minty, floral, very mild. When I talked to them about it yesterday, they talked about this as being kind of a lager hop, something that they want to compete with the continental type hops.
Huh.
Yeah, and we typically a standard for us for the Hop Chronicles is to use these in a sort of a moderately hopped pale ale, which is what this beer is, and so it's going to express itself a little bit differently, in a lower hopped lager, as it were. But I have to agree, in my perception, knowing what this was and knowing all the descriptions, I got the same thing. Kind of the herbal floral thing was the most strong for me. Yeah.
Wow, that's weird. How across the spectrum we all were. I mean, it seemed like to me that we were bouncing all around.
Right. I think when you do these kind of more mild hops and stuff, and you really make that the focus of the beer, it kind of lets you see that a more mild, lower alpha hop can be expressive if used, by itself or if used as the prominent hop, which I don't think a lot of people think of hops like that necessarily.
So did you say how much you used and how you treated the hop?
Yeah, so we generally hop these to about 30 IBUs, so whatever the alpha calculated out to be for the 60-minute edition, and then I'll do 30 grams at 30 minutes, 30 grams at 5, and 30 grams for dry hop.
And so have you had any big surprises during all these trials?
I don't know. I'll let some of the other guys who have done these more than I have speak to the surprises. The one that I was most kind of pleased with, in a weird way, because it validated convention, which is odd for me, was when was the Willamette one that Matt brewed up, and the if you look at the spider graph, it pretty much aligns perfectly with the expert sensory analysis that folks already had out there, and so it was really neat to see that there was there are these things that can be fairly universal, I guess, in when it comes to sensory analysis and hops, at least, because that Willamette beer seemed to the characteristics. I think Sauce was another one on some level, and the way they lined up, people blind tasters who have no idea what hop was used, tasting this beer and then rating on their own and feeling completely insecure about their ratings, and it still lined up beautifully, like perfectly, with what the expert sensory analysts say about Willamette.
For me, it's really kind of using the traditional American hops that we all throw in our IPAs and don't really think about using too much, but Cascade for me was one that really stood out as something that I had never tried by itself before, but it was just bursting with flavor and a hop that I've used a lot since, just because of doing the Hop Chronicles.
It kind of has fallen out of favor in your mind just because it's sort of an older variety that's been around a while?
Yeah.
So we have to plug the podcast, the Brulosophy podcast. You guys are doing a great job. And what's it like being on that side of the fence?
It's so much more work. It's so much more work. Yeah, so much more. Thank you for plugging it. We're hugely inspired, obviously, by you guys and what you've been up to, and all of the experimental stuff. I've told you this before and kissed your butt like that, but
not literally.
Well, we won't talk about the literal part of that, but yeah, it's great. It's been a lot of fun. We have a very I think a specific focus for the podcast at this point, and that's really to focus on the stuff that we've already done and making it. I think Ray said it best. He said there are things that we can say when we're being conversational about it that if we type up, it just reads completely off. And so it's been a lot of fun being able to kind of banter about the crap that we do. It's and to do it in a really conversational and fun way. And it seems like the response has been. The response has been really fantastic. People seem to really like it, and that's validating. It makes us want to keep doing it.
And it's easier to consume on the treadmill and while you're driving than the blog.
Yeah, indeed. It's not easier to edit. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, my word. Yeah, people don't. That's one of the things. And kudos to you guys, because I only realized this. I've been editing music for a while, but I only realized when you've got multiple streams, or if you've got a caller calling in, and the focus that you have to put on making sure that everything lines up, because Skype isn't perfect. Skype has a delay, and you have to correct those delays. It's little things like that. And for a 1 hour episode, I probably spend 4 to 5 hours minimum working on it. So.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we want to say about this hop before we move on to the next one?
So, should we do the second one?
We want to do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Got to call out Malcolm.
What's up? What are we talking about? Hops?
We're talking about some hops. So are we ready to talk about our descriptors?
Yeah, what's this taste? This to me is very lime and lemon. It almost smells like it has lemon oil in it. Yeah.
Light citrus floral.
Slightly caddy, but it's limey and lemony.
Little spicy lime.
I get lemon lime with a little bit of spice and floral. Yep.
Yeah, I did this beer, so I won't talk yet.
I get some resin and a little bit of lemon character.
Lemon, grapefruit, and pepper.
I got some melon and some floral.
We had lemon poppy seed.
I had pepper and spice.
Cinnamon and woody and minty. I got herbal, spicy, and green onions and garlic, or onions and garlic.
Interesting. What'd you have for lunch?
Yeah, I had light citrus and light spice. Pretty mild overall.
Yeah, I thought this was hard. This is a tough one. I said like a long peach kind of cantaloupe-y kind of thing. So, yeah. So what was it?
So the big reveal on this one. So this is actually a very popular hop that a lot of people have been using called Motueka. Motueka. Okay. It's one I've been using in a lot of IPAs lately, blended, and I just get tons of lime in this beer, and I love it. It's really good.
So yeah, we got a lot of citrus around the room. You were talking during the break while we were tasting that you get different characteristics out of these hops from single hop to blending different hops. So, Malcolm, you want to?
Oh yeah. So, it's had an interest. One of the great things about being here at HomebrewCon, NHC, is all the people you meet, and you meet some really influential people in the industry, like authors and such. And was walking by, and they're staying Hieronymus, and I had just judged with them, and he's actually doing continuing research on biotransformation. And basically, we were talking about, I'm not going to go into specifics, but certain hops can do the one plus one makes three situation, where these oils combine and it makes it think you have other flavors that alone they don't have by themselves. And part of that could be the oils as they combine and how we perceive them, but it could also be what happens during the biotransformation process as well. So these oils being available for the yeast to then transform.
Could it be something like when I've seen stories on like flavor labs where they make artificial flavors, like watermelon is not really watermelon, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and maybe on that same theory that, when you combine these same kind of basic flavor components that they add up to something else?
Yeah, so I was having this conversation with Scott earlier. Scott Janish is in the room, and one of the classic examples they use is isoamyl acetate, right? It's a banana. I think most brewers know that one. Well, by itself, it tastes like fake banana because you don't have the sweetness. People taste isoamyl acetate and they associate it with sweetness, but there's no sweetness. There's none of the green flavors that are accompanied with fruit. So I think it's the same thing where by itself it seems one-dimensional and fake, but with all these other layers it becomes something else. So yeah, I think in pairing it's like, oh, with this oil and this oil, now it's mango, something like that.
Cool. So what else do we need to know, Marshall Schott?
Well, The Hop Chronicles. The Hop Chronicles it's no longer new. I guess we would say it's more of a standard nowadays. And in fact, Matt is the guy who's been focusing on it lately. He might have more to say than I do. But it's a project that we try to pump out minimum of one article per month, and our whole goal being to really evaluate single hop characteristics so that people can hopefully eventually refer to the website and see try to match certain hops based on the descriptors of blind tasters for beers that they want. So if you want a hop, or let's say you want a beer that has a subtle melon character with a lot of fruit, tropical fruit, you can go and check out the radar graphs and kind of pair them up that way and see how it works out for you.
And you can't just say what he said.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if there's anything like to take away from the Hop Chronicles kind of as a practice, it's that there's still a lot of room for personal perception, a lot of room for experimentation in just our hop varieties. I mean, when we get some, like Marshall mentioned, Willamette and Chexas ended up lining up with some of our pretty typical thoughts of how those things interact, but then others maybe vary a little bit where, we get a little bit of spicy character and we can see that, but also this might be a little more herbal and floral, and some of the associations. But I think for me, especially as brewers, when we're picking out descriptors, it's that we've heard a lot of awesome descriptors in the room. Like Scott said, poppy seed, and we've heard lemon oil, and we've heard a lot of stuff. The descriptors we typically use are somewhat inadequate in the sense of how, there are going to be a lot of really common things, like they're all described the same way, but they're all really different in the sense that they do that. So, yeah, if anything to walk away from Hop Chronicles, it's that there's so much room to continue experimenting and continue developing to your palate and trying different varieties and doing that.
Cool. Very good.
I think one of the things that I'm kind of most excited to see, given the relative newness of this project for us, is over time, as we start to go back and reevaluate hops from different crop years or from different areas. We were just talking to the Growler Farms folks about terroir and the impact that might have on. I mean, I had a beer, for example, that had Argentinian Cascade. And they might as well just have called it a different hop because it did not taste like what you expect from a Cascade hopped beer here in America. But it was good, but it was different. And so I'm really excited to get to that point where we're starting to do more comparisons, not only crop year, but also different growing regions and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I'm also excited to see the Brulosophy fanny pack in person.
The Brulosophy what? Yeah.
Is it called Brew Belt?
The Brutality.
I've got a fanny pack, so there you go.
Yeah. You wear.
I think you stole my idea.
I've been wearing this since I was 7 years old, James. I promise you.
Awesome. Well, it's great to get together with you guys again. And, hope we'll see you up in Portland.
Absolutely.
Next year. So,
no doubt.
All right. Keep up the good work.
Thanks so much. You guys, too. Thank you for having us on.
Well, thanks again to Marshall and for and everybody else in the room for getting together with us. And I'm already looking forward to Portland next year. And it's later. The HomebrewCon is going to be later in the month of June, so I get to be home for my birthday. And Steve gets to spend his wedding anniversary with his wife. What a concept. Now, Club Night is probably my favorite part of HomebrewCon every year. All the creativity and skill of the homebrewers with the beers that they brew and the wackiness of the booth themes around Club Night is just awesome. And you can talk to brewing experts directly on the floor, as we did, and find out cool new information. But before we went into the event, we caught Gary Glass, director of the American Homebrewers Association, in the quiet before the storm. Well, Gary Glass, here we are again.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. We're outside Hall D here. Here in just a few minutes, it's going to be a wacky place full of homebrewers from all over the country and all over the world, basically. So, how we do this year at the Homebrewers Conference?
Well, once again, I mean, we're nearly it's one of the largest conferences we've ever had. We've got 2,500 attendees, as you said, from all over the world. 20 countries represented at this year's conference.
Wow.
So, yeah. I mean, I'm super excited to be getting in there for Club Night, which is always the highlight of HomebrewCon.
Now, we were here, in 2010?
That's right, 2010, just a little ways south of here in Bloomington.
And how do we compare from the numbers then to the numbers now here?
Oh, we have more than 1,000 more attendees than the last time we were here, so nearly double the attendance in just that short time span.
That's crazy. It's this homebrewing may catch on, maybe something.
I sure hope so, because I'd like to stay employed as the director of the American Homebrewers Association. So.
Well, it's been wonderful. There've been 5 tracks of sessions going on at the same time. Anybody who is a member of the Homebrewers Association can go online and find that material online. Not only the slides, but the audio content, and you're doing video this year too.
Yeah, so the video capture allows somebody to watch the presentation with the audio combined. So they're going to be able to see the speaker talking. They're going to be able to see the slide presentation. They don't have to scroll through a PDF the way we've done it in the past. So much better experience getting access to all of those sessions from this year's conference.
That's great, because you can't be at 5 places at once, because there's some stuff that I didn't get to go to, but I can watch it as many times as I want to online. So.
Yeah, that's right, and that is available not only to attendees of HomebrewCon, but also to anybody who's a member of the American Homebrewers Association.
Awesome. And next year?
Next year we are going to Portland, Oregon. It will be exactly 20 years since the last time we had HomebrewCon in Portland, so very excited to be going to that great beer destination.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait. Mm-hmm. All right. Congratulations, Gary.
Hey, thank you, James.
Well, Steve Wilkes, we're walking into the hall. This is our 12th National Homebrewers Conference. This is our 12th club night. Are you excited?
I'm so excited I can barely stand it. I don't even know what these guys are in the blue bubbles in front of us.
This is an audio podcast.
I know. I'm painting a picture. I'm painting a poetic picture. It's amazing. It's a big domed auditorium. It's not really an auditorium, but just a convention space. But it looks like a nuclear reactor. It's got red lights everywhere. There are guys in blue inflatable vests in front of us.
Are they blueberries? No. They'd be. I don't know.
They're
raspberry.
Like Smurf flak jackets, and there's a myriad of clubs with a myriad of beers that we need to go try.
All right, let's get to it.
Okay.
All right, introduce yourself and where are you from and what do we got here?
So we're from Waverly, Iowa. The group is called Craze. There's 3 of us that came today. I was a professor at Wartburg College, a microbiologist, and I just retired, so I'm doing home brewing as a fun thing to do. Forgot what your other question was.
Who are you?
Oh,
you're Roy.
Yeah, my name is Roy Ventullo. Chip Bizard brews with me at home. He's in the religion department. I'm in biology, so we got both sides covered when we brew beer.
You just pray it works, right?
Yeah, sometimes, and sometimes that helps with the beer.
Let that disparage be stuck, right? So,
yes. And sometimes that works.
So talk about this beer.
It's a Gosa style. Just started trying to do some sours. We kettle sour it. And then 100 degrees overnight. Gets down to about pH 3.5. We boil it up, throw in some hops, throw in a neutral yeast. I think this was 1007. Nice, plain, flavorless yeast. Brew it up, and then ferment it away.
And now what do we got over here to go in the Goza?
So they're Berliner Weiss style. People tended to put extracts of various fruit flavors. And so I brought strawberry, cherry, Woodruff, which is a common one for Berliner Weiss, and figured the Gosa style is very similar because it's got the sourness and a little bit of salt in it, of course. And I figured if it works for the sour Berliner Weiss, it might work here. So it changes the flavor a little bit. 1 drop, because this is an extract, you only need 1 drop in a small glass. That's about enough to do a 10-gallon batch if you threw the whole thing in. I know Amaretti was here, and we've been using a lot of their materials. And so I just wanted to try the small extracts because it was easier to put a drop in than pump it in.
Well, and I can testify that it's delicious on its own. And Steve, what have you done to it?
I added 1 drop of sweet Woodruff syrup or extract, and it did change the flavor. 1 drop didn't change it so dramatically but it's definitely different, and I must say I like it better.
Yeah, Woodruff is kind of an interesting. It's an extract from a plant, and I've never used it before, but it does really change the flavor quite a bit, and I think it takes that bite off. So for people who sort of like sour beers but not too sour, yeah, because I think the Berliner Weiss was originally designed for that because it's pretty sour, and people put flavoring in and went, no, I can drink this now. Yeah, sort of.
Well, nice. Quick question. I wanted to know about the salt dosing for the beer. How much salt do you put in for 5 or 10 gallons, however you made it?
So for a 5-gallon batch, 0.75 to 1 ounce. And I tend to then check it at the end again and maybe add a little bit more because it's hard to take it out. So, and it ranges. Some people put in 1 or 2 ounces of both the coriander and the salt. Other people, not so much. And so, each of the German ones that I've seen, some of them are really sour, some of them got a lot of coriander, and it's a hard balance. And sending in for competition, some people think it's got too much, some too little, because it's one of those new styles. I mean, it's been around a long time, but, everybody's starting to do them now. And I've had everything from ones that are like, not too sour to some of the German ones are really, really good. So it's just an interesting style to do. And as a microbiologist, I like the sort of mix and match piece.
I can remember my dad, we go to the bar, well, I mean, I wouldn't get him, but we go to the tavern and he'd get a beer, he'd salt his beer. You guys ever remember that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, my dad used to do that. I think that, well, it was Budweiser, so you had to do something with it. Yeah, put some flavor in it.
Yeah.
Well, nicely done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming by. Yeah, stop by and have some other beers.
We will.
You bet.
All right, see you later.
Pig.
Come see the what?
The pig.
Who am I talking to here, Dave?
Dave Rost, Iowa Brewers Union.
What's the pig?
Well, my buddy John over here made it. It's a walk-in cooler made to look like a pig. Talk to John here. He'll tell you all about it.
I think it was an ill-conceived notion after club night last year. The Baltimore club had a pirate ship they were wheeling around. I was like, that's really cool. We need to make a pig. And it seemed like a great idea at the time. About Monday night, about 11 o'clock, when I wasn't done yet, I wasn't sure if it was such a great idea. But it holds 7 kegs.
Oh, my God. Wow.
6 teats and then the business end.
Well, we've got the business end on this side. That doesn't look like a face at all.
It's a sour stout coming out of the business end.
Well, you can always enter it in the Rose Parade next year.
There you go.
Come on over and take a look.
Nicely done.
Oh, thank you.
Don Osborne, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you, James, as always.
What do we got here?
This is a IPA made with 2-track malts. They are a small maltster in North Dakota, craft maltster, artisanal maltster. I have 3 different of their malts in here, pretty heavily hopped, and the gravity comes in a little bit lower when I use the 2-track malt. They have a little lower yield, so then consequently I think it drinks a little bit bitter. But it's, IPA. I think it's like 7% or so, and it was an experiment using some untried malts, and this is a hop schedule that I use for my India Pale Lager. So heavily loaded at the end, and a hop stand, hop resin for the bittering, and then mostly just a lot of hops at the end, and in a little bigger beer, that level of bitterness translates maybe slightly better than this beer, but I still like it.
Well, you're picking it. You're being self-defacing here, but I like it quite a bit.
We're always our hardest critics, I suppose. And I maybe just drank something else, and then I drink this, so then it hits me a little differently. But I like it. I'm glad the Northeast Brewers Alliance are putting it on for us because we don't have our own booth. So it's very nice of them. Thank you to those guys.
Now, when you say we,
I'm with the Chop and Brew crew. Chip is a friend of mine and neighbor, and we are in each other's videos. We help each other out in our experiments, and he's actually on stage right now playing some tunes. And so there's going to be a total of like 5 or so Chop and Brew affiliate kegs on tap at the Northeast Brewers booth.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So it's delicious. Like I say, you're beating yourself up. But So how was it? What was it like to work with this new maltster's malt?
It was, so we got some Pils malt, some pale malt, and then we got what they call sort of a Munich malt, and then we have they call a specialty grain. And with a specialty grain in this beer is kind of the X factor. I think this beer has a little bit of a characteristic that reminds me of when you use a little brown malt. Or I made this hoppy beer with Ashburn Mild, and I kind of describe it a little bit of a toasted nuttiness, a very light burnt flavor, just a little bit of a sort of a unexpected flavor in a hoppy beer that you might think is shouldn't be there, but it just kind of gives it a different kind of character.
It's pretty darn bitter. But I like it. But there is a nice malt backbone, and I think it's a good tasting malt backbone as well. So,
well, I appreciate that, and I thought that the malt in this format works with several of their malts. I made a single malt beer that I didn't care for as much as when I used some of their combination of malts, and I think this comes out better, at least in my limited experience.
Well, very cool. Very cool that we're having some additional ingredients coming online that we can play with.
Yes, there are. I believe we are going to see more and more of this. Regional, smaller scale maltsters. We've already seen that in yeast. Lots of different yeast manufacturers. The hop acreage, I think, is continuing to increase. And along with that, experimental hops. Why not malt? Why not different malts?
Yeah, I'm all for it.
All right.
Well, it's good to be in your town again.
Welcome back. It's always nice to see you and Steve, you two goofballs. I can't wait to see you in about 2 hours and see what shenanigans you're up to by then.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah, man. Take care.
All right, tell me who you are and where you're from.
Hey, I'm Brian Studeman, and I'm from Marshall, Minnesota, and I'm a member of SMASH. It's our homebrew club, and this is our first time at the HomebrewCon, and we're having a blast.
All right, and what am I drinking here? This is delicious.
You're drinking a fudge brownie stout, and it's actually a milk stout that was racked on fudge brownies.
So how do you do that?
Well, you make a milk stout, and when you're ready for secondary, you bake a pan of brownies, and this is a triple fudge brownie mix. You buy it at the store, and when it's hot and ready out of the oven, you don't let it sit for too long. And I took half pan, cut it out, I put it in just maybe an ounce of vodka, just a little bit, mix it up, put it in a hot bag with some weights, put it in secondary, rack the milk stout on it. 9 days later, keg it. That's it.
Now, did the yeast kick up the fermentation?
Yeah, it did. You're right. So in secondary, I did notice a little bit. So it pulled the sugars up, but I was a little worried that it might, turn like a mutant or something, pick up something. But this is our third batch this year, and each time it tastes exactly the same.
Wow, it is delicious. I wouldn't have thought to do this. Where did this idea come from?
Actually, Dr. Meister here recommended one time when making a milk stout, he goes, you should really rack that on a cake, like a cake, frosted cake or whatever. And I thought about it, I'm like, a cake would fall apart, it's too spongy. So I thought, why not brownies? It's more solid, more dense, it might stay together. And that's what I did. Why not? It's actually a homebrew kit, it's an extract kit. And I didn't spend that much money on it, so I thought, take a risk. And it paid off.
Well, it's great. You can't argue with success, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, tell me who you are and where you're from.
James Meady, Savage, Minnesota.
And what are you sipping on?
Pineapple mead.
Do you know where you got it from?
Right down there from the, I can't remember the club name.
Is it good?
It's very good.
So is this your first conference?
First time.
Is it overwhelming yet?
Yes, a little bit.
You got to have a strategy. You got to have you got to be a little selective, because if you get a sample of everything, you won't make it.
I tend to walk around and check everything out first, then make another trip for my samples.
Well, everybody I ask, I say, or everybody I meet, I say, if you find something good, come find me. And so, that's why it's how I found out about this this milk stout racked onto brownies, which, who knows?
Another good one is on the other corner there. It's the Motor City Brew Club. They're doing a Big Lebowski theme, so all their beer titles are kind of named after the Big Lebowski. And I had it's the Don't F with the Jesus was the name of it, and it was a porter porter with coconut.
Oh, I think that's my next stop. Thanks, James.
You're welcome.
All right, tell me who you are and where you're from.
I'm Mark Hurley from the Brew Hut in Aurora, Colorado.
The Brew Hut? The Brew Hut. I've had a couple of beers. Mark, I have to admit,
I haven't been there, but
the Brew Hut has been one of our early supporters and one of our longest supporters, purchasing the DVDs and using the DVDs. So we are much grateful.
Yeah, we're very big fans of that. Every homebrew kit we sell out goes out with one of your DVDs. So.
Let me buy you a beer here at the.
I appreciate that.
So this can't be your first conference.
This is my second conference. I went to San Diego. We had another group of people came last year, and then this is my second.
What do you think?
Oh, I'm having a blast. Absolutely having a blast.
What's your favorite so far tonight?
I just got here, but some of the meads that the Kansas City Beer Meisters are doing are pretty fantastic.
Awesome. Well, I told somebody that I was going to head over and try to find another beer, which I've forgotten already. So that's the way this night goes,
Absolutely. There's some great beers here tonight, I'm sure.
Hey, there's a milk chocolate stout or over there, or a milk stout over there that has been racked onto brownies.
Ooh.
In the Smash booth on the other side of that.
All right, I'm going to have to go try that.
It's pretty good.
Well, thanks for the recommendation. I appreciate it.
It's good to see you, Mark.
Yeah, great seeing you.
Randy Mosher, you're standing there drinking a beer, and I'm sticking a microphone in your face.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'd rather have a beer in my face, but I got one of those too, so how can I complain? So I'm drinking a New England IPA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so those started to kind of roll across our consciousness a couple of years ago, and I'm involved with a couple of breweries in Chicago, and one of them we're doing a Latin craft beer thing. We've kind of dabbled with them, but the other one is called Forbidden Root, and our brewer there has really got into them. So we've had a lot of really interesting conversations, like, is this just nothing? Are they just like weirdly cloudy beers, or is there something there? And so we've really spent a lot of time tasting and trying to dissect them, and we have come to the point of view that, yeah, there's definitely something there. And so it's been a really interesting process, incrementally trying to figure out all the layers of production in terms of the water chemistry to get just the right mouthfeel, the alternate grains and the mashing techniques that we're using for things like spelt and oats and flake wheat to make sure that we're maximizing that creamy texture. We're dry hopping on day 2 during active fermentation because we're interested in getting the biotransformation. We're choosing our hops carefully to make sure that the biotransformation, where you're changing like the orangey linalool compound into the more citrusy, lemony, beta citronellol. So there's all this like deep chemical chemistry that, and for this brewery we call ourselves a botanic brewery. So making an IPA would be kind of, maybe you think, the furthest thing from what that is, but actually what we're trying to really do is understanding hops as we understand any other botanical, like understanding coriander or understanding rhubarb root or angelica seed, and really understand the chemistry of it and make sure that we manipulate our process in a way that we get the best advantage from the input of raw materials, that we do it efficiently, that we get the flavors we want and we don't get the flavors we don't want. So it's been a pretty interesting journey. We're not at the end point yet. We're still feeling like every batch is like, okay, next time we're going to do this. Well, maybe you never really get there. That's part of the fun of it.
Well, as the author of Radical Brewing, should be right up your alley, right?
Well, that and beers made with grasshoppers and stuff like that. So,
Well, and this seems like to be, at this point, to be a style, quote unquote, that sort of needs some rules or needs some guidance, because you hear a bunch of stuff about people putting a bunch of flour in the beer at certain points, and it seems like to me that there's a lot of gimmicks going on to kind of mimic something that seems more authentic. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, there is. And I think one of the things that drove me away from it in the beginning was its reliance on a visual aspect, because we are dominated by our eyes to a worrisome extent when you're talking about beer. If a beer's a little too dark, we're going to find dark flavors in it even if it's not there. So that was one of the things that initially put me off. I know there are beers out there that have a lot of yeast in them, and yeast is not really a very good flavor in beer. It's not very stable. It doesn't stay in suspension very well. But, you know, we really, the haziness is a byproduct of the process that we use. So for us, what's important, huge amount of hop aroma that is also really tilted towards the fruity, to the stone fruit and tropical, towards a really thick, creamy body that's really luscious on the palate and super creamy. And I'm like a wheat beer guy. I'm a wit beer guy. I think one of our next experiences, we're going to try and brew a classic Belgian wit as a base for one of these New England IPAs, because there's a milkshakey beer right there for you, right? So to lay all those hops on top would be interesting. And so, then, you know, just really trying to get that super hop-forward aroma to avoid the bite. A lot of the hazes seems to be actually coming from the hop additions during dry hopping. So if you dry hop during active fermentation, Stan Hieronymus is standing here nodding, but scientifically nobody's done a paper on this, but it seems from practical experiences when you dry hop on day 2, you get a lot of haze. That's different from starch haze, it's different from yeast haze, it really has its own characteristics. And so so there's a lot of learning. I think it's just from a creative and technological point of view, it's a really interesting challenge, and it doesn't hurt that the market is like red hot for these things, and it's a way of building that bridge from that super geeky customer that's really hard to please and really fickle. We're happy to be on their radar.
So now, one of the benefits of Club Night is if you're having a discussion about hoppy beers and things like that, you know, you can turn from one beer expert who's written a bunch of books to another beer expert who's written a bunch of books. Stan Hieronymus is here. You wrote a book on hops. What do you think about this new hazy, New England IPA thing?
Well, it's a whole new area to begin understanding things. I think Randy's run through that pretty nicely. But we're trying to figure out, for instance, do these beers really need to be this hazy to taste the same way? That we don't have a simple answer that way. But when he was talking about the hopping, I was talking to the brewer, Rubens Brews in Seattle, and he's going, his beer will begin to drop bright at like a few days in, and then when he adds those hops, that puts that haze right back in, which is permanent in terms. It may not be permanent for 2 or 3 months, but that doesn't matter because they're going to sell it in 8 days. So could you do that with a clean-looking beer, which if you've been brewing for a while just says you, that's our goal, to make our beer be pretty, but maybe this is redefining pretty. In addition, who doesn't like a great-looking Hefeweizen? And we can make those haze stable for months at a time, and they'll still look nice looking in the sun. So that, and of course, many of these beers do have wheat in them. You have the oats. I don't really know how that changes the equation. So that's one aspect of it. I don't want to be that guy chasing the kids off the lawn saying your beer must be clear. You know, I won't deny that there's a real appeal of the flavor. From somebody who has tried to save for retirement, the idea of putting 10 pounds of hops in a barrel makes me think these people are going to have to retire very old.
Well, now, we did an experiment with the Brulosophy guys today where we were tasting some single hop beers, and they were kind of one-dimensional, and there was some discussion there, and I believe one or maybe both of you guys' names were mentioned, where you're talking about the interaction between hop varieties and maybe making, 1 + 1 = 3 as far as the combinations of the different hops together. Does that make any sense? Is it ringing any bells, or has anybody heard anything?
As hop scientists will tell you, one of their job guarantees is this is about synergy, and only they understand synergy. But actually, in terms of experiments, you can take, there are more than 500 odor compounds in hops. Many of those are below threshold, but you can put two of them together sometimes and it'll pop above thresholds. In the UK recently, they were, and this is a scoop for you, they've been making an effort to analyze the hops, both using gas chromatography and figure out what the compounds are there, and then, of course, doing sensory studies, what they're like, to take hop varieties, blend them together to emulate another hop. And they were targeting Amarillo, as a matter of fact. And in the course of that, they identified, they were looking at 120 compounds that they identified in the hop. 9 of those made it into the beer. The others are they're either flashing off, they're masked by other flavors, there's biotransformation taking place where the yeast turn them into something else. So there are only 9 of those. But what your listeners really want to know right now is, what is the blend that I can use instead of, and I don't have a book I can say you must buy to do this, so I will tell them that it's 5 parts Cascade, 1 part lemon drop equals Amarillo.
How do we get Galaxy, though, Stan?
Yeah,
that's what I really want to know. Because it's like $40 a pound right now.
The most expensive hop right now, day in, day out, when you can get it, is easily Nelson Sauvin. Every time that pops up on Lupulin Exchange, it's over $30 a pound. Galaxy, I mean, they upped the acreage on Galaxy immensely. Came in about, but they contracted high enough, they'll cut some back. They're going to be about 10% short. Nelson Sauvin came in way under, but of course they're more careful about contracting. But anybody who, if you have a contract for Galaxy from the 2007 harvest, you're going to get that hop. You aren't going to be able to add. Nelson Sauvin, you're probably going to get about 10% less at the dealer level, which means it depends which customers, or their best customers, will do better. But anyway, in this blend, what they've been working on now, and they actually have blends, and those hops are going out, are 1 to replace Citra and 1 to replace Simcoe. Not to replace, but to use in those places. So larger breweries like Avery, I know, has got the hops for that. Start running those tests, and then they'll say, okay, this worked, or that didn't work.
Wow, that's pretty exciting.
You never know what you'll learn at HomebrewCon.
Amen. Well, I think I'm going to go in search of more good beers. Thanks, Dan.
It's been a pleasure, but they're going to run out of stuff we really want at St. Paul, so we're going to leave you now.
Okay, tell me who you are and where you're from.
Kevin Rail from Taylor, Michigan.
And what's your club?
Motor City Mashers.
All right, now what style of beer am I about to sample?
It began as an oatmeal stout.
Okay, and you guys are the dude is abiding here at your booth.
Very much so. Our theme is Big Lebowski this year, and it's turned out to be quite a hit.
Okay, and I'm gonna ask you delicately what this is a PG-rated show. What's the name of your beer?
Don't fudge with the Jesus.
Nicely done.
All of our beers this year are quotes taken directly from the movie.
This is delicious. But talk about how you made this beer.
Well, like I said, it started out as a oatmeal stout, 1060 gravity. After primary fermentation, I toast up some coconut and add it to secondary and let it sit on there for a few weeks. Normally when I would do this, I would use some organic, natural vanilla extract, add that to it. But funny thing, the last time it was here in Minneapolis, NHC, I made this beer. And it was a hit. And I figured, well, we're coming back to Minneapolis, let's do it again. But I changed it up a little bit, and instead of vanilla extract or beans, I use oak chips that have been soaking in Crown Royal vanilla.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and I added a couple cinnamon sticks, changed it up a little bit, and hopefully it's, a little bit different.
Well, I don't remember having the other one, but this one's really good. Thank you. Talk about the coconut. How did you treat it? What kind of coconut did you get? All that?
Well, it's just regular shaved coconut you find at your local grocery store. The standard size packages. Put them in the oven, 400 degrees, 3 packages. Toast them nice and brown. Make sure you want to kill anything that's on there. Make sure you use sweetened coconut. Is you want that fermentation to start up a little bit. You're introducing a lot of oxygen, so you want start up a little bit, burp all that out, and that's it.
Wow, nicely done.
Thank you.
Well, Kevin, I appreciate it, and nice robe.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Tell me who you are and where you're from.
I'm Ron Robinson from Saginaw, Michigan.
What do we got here, Ron?
It's Imperial Stout. It's 14.5%. The OG was 11.32. It's all de-bittered malts, so tried to minimize any astringency to it. It turned a year old on Big Brew Day.
Wow, it's tasty. So how do you manage the fermentation of such a big beer?
5-liter starter of San Diego Super from White Labs. I shoot it with oxygen every day the first 4 days of fermentation, and then just let it ride, and it usually finishes out.
Well, it's delicious, and it's nicely fermented. It's nice and clean.
Thanks.
Great job. Thank you.
No problem, man.
Tell me who you are and where you're from.
Josh Rumsa from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
And you were just telling Steve and me that you finished a Herculean task.
Yes, I watched or listened to all of the basic brewing in 1 year. 6 months, 8 months, something like that, and learned with you guys throughout the years and just dove right in. I went from 1 gallon extract to 5 gallon all grain on my stove in a year, and now I'm doing the full all grain mash, but then adding the water at the end to get it up to 5 gallons, and I do that once a week, so I'm up to 70 batches now.
Wow! So I wish that I could have learned all that we've learned in that short of a period of time.
It would have been nice, wouldn't it?
So what did you hear, like some conflicting things, like at the beginning of the year you heard us say do one thing and then later on you said do another?
Yeah, and just with the guests, and I'm going through 10, 15 years in 1 year, so like a lot of experiments have happened and gone on and whatnot, so it was great to figure it out and see the results as well, do my own experiments with them, so I appreciate all that you guys have done.
Well, we appreciate you, and we appreciate your being tolerant of our mistakes along the way.
No problem. It's been fun, and I still listen to the day. So, all
right. Cheers, Josh.
Cheers.
All right, tell me who you are and where you're from.
My name is Brian Hall. I'm from Anchorage, Alaska, and I occasionally blog over at BrowerieChugach.com.
Say it again?
BrowerieChugach.com. So Brouwer, like brewery from Belgium, and then Chugach because I was raised right beside the Chugach Mountains.
Oh, there you go. What are we about to drink here?
So you guys are drinking a rhubarb AK Lambic style beer. So it's a lambic beer that was brewed in 2014 and then aged on Alaskan rhubarb for the last 10 months.
Wow.
It's really good. Wow. Yeah.
It's nice and tart, but it's substantial enough in body to be interesting and satisfying. So give us the tips of how you do this.
So I take all of my lambic style beers, I do them as traditionally as you possibly can outside of Belgium, full turbid mash. I do inoculate with yeast from the labs, and then I age them in a barrel for anywhere 1 to 2, 3 years, pull them out, and then I age them on fruit. So I've got blueberry, I've got cherry, I've got raspberry, and peach nectarine, which I just ran out of.
Man, that's too much. These are really, really good.
When you guys are done with that, the Alaskan blueberries are much smaller, but they're a lot more potent in flavor, so it's more like a dessert kind of aperitif, but it's a really pleasant, strong blueberry flavor, because it's like with blueberry you want to go all the way or not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I drink a blueberry beer and it's like, what the hell's that?
When you get done with that, I'll give you some blueberry.
All right.
We're here talking to Magnus. Introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
My name is Magnus Johnson. I'm from Sweden. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Swedish Homebrew Association's member magazine.
So what is the state of homebrewing in Sweden?
It's developing. I saw pictures from or slides today from AHA about that the rapid increase in home brewing has kind of leveled out, but in Sweden it's still growing very fast. So we're a couple of years behind you guys.
So what do people like to brew in Sweden?
Oh, this is the same things people brew here. This part is very similar to our competitions. I think perhaps the styles here are more diverse. We are very much into IPAs and saisons and sour beers now.
What do you think about this establishment here? This this setup.
Establishment here?
Well, no, I'm just talking about this whole thing. It's a big, huge hall full of just about any beer that you'd ever think of, and more.
I think this is a perfect place for newcomers to beer and experienced beer drinkers to sample everything there is. This is the best of the best.
Very nice. Thanks, Magnus.
Thank you.
Drew Beecham.
James Spencer.
How are you?
I don't know. Ask me later.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking a Kung Pao Porter.
Whoa, Nelly.
Yeah, well, I was just over at the Crabs booth from the Crabs from Maryland. I caught a case of crabs.
Yeah, you beat me to it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm going to get to all the bad jokes for anybody if I can help it. And I actually got taken over to the booth originally because they had a pastrami goza. And basically, you know me, and like people just grabbed me by the elbow and said, "Here's a weird thing. Go try this." And so I did, and it was really freaking impressive. The brewer Rachel made a goza with smoked malt, a little bit of liquid smoke, obviously the lacto thing going on, black pepper and salt, and just a couple of other elements in it. And oh my God, it was like pastrami. And so of course my next take on it was, okay, so you got sour and you got the pastrami. Now I need the rye bread and some mustard seed because
I was going to say find a rye IPA and you got it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so to me it's like, one of the fun things about Club Night is you sit there and you just start talking about this sort of stuff, and I love just brainstorming because that's what I do. And yeah, I mean, like we spent 5 months writing down, okay, what are the next steps that you could take, and how do we get this to be like a full-blown pastrami sandwich? And oh, by the way, you know that the best pastrami in the world is in L.A., and this would be perfect with one of those sandwiches. So, Club Night, where you can nerd
but
out.
Then Kung Pao Porter? What?
Well, yeah, and so as I'm finishing that, they're like, oh, hey, well, do you want a walking around beer? And I'm like, I will never object to the idea of a walking around beer. And they said, well, here, we have a Kung Pao Porter. And I'm like, so it's got chilies and peanuts and, a little bit of gingery type things going on in it. And
Does it taste like chicken? Does it taste like chicken?
No, shrimp. No. All right, it is. It has porter characteristics to it. It has chili heat, but the chili heat itself is not overwhelming.
Wow.
And that's very awesome.
So I think we have a booth that we need to visit.
Okay. Cheers.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome. You guys have a great night.
Cheers. There goes Marge Simpson.
What can I get for you to drink?
Marge, what do you got?
I have a chocolate peanut butter stout that's run through a Randall of Butterfinger candy bars.
Oh, my God. Well, say no more.
There you go. Would you like to try some?
I would. Thank you very much.
So is this your beer?
It's our club beer. And Lisa can actually play our theme on her saxophone.
Lisa Simpson is now going to play the saxophone. Now you have to run away. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Thank you. I'm John Palmer. Good to see you.
How you doing, James? I'm great to be here.
Well, of course, we picked the loudest part of the thing to talk.
Well, it'll probably amount to better audio content than just me speaking alone.
Always modest. I got a copy of your new book, which is an expanded version of the old book.
Yeah.
So, you added a whole lot of stuff. So what do we cover in the new book that's not in the old book?
Well, I added 5 chapters. The 5 chapters are brewing strong beers, brewing fruit beers, brewing sour beers. It's really a sours 101 kind of thing. I mean, can't get in too deep into it. But, and then I broke out fermentation into 2 chapters, kind of like the yeast life cycle and maturation first, and then the nuts and bolts of yeast management and pitching rate in the second. then I did the same with water. Took what I learned doing the water book and expanded that in the all grain section. But I moved it after brewing your first all grain batch, because you can do all grain without knowing anything about water. So once you've got some experience with the process, now we can start looking at water a little bit. So that's how I organize it this time.
Yeah, I'm proof that you can do all grain without knowing anything about water. So, I sat on the porch and I started reading it, and it's been a while since I read the first one, and it just reminded me of how easy your writing style is to read. You are really talented in breaking this stuff down and making it approachable, and taking these topics that are, sometimes confusing and intimidating, and really making it readable and approachable, and you do a good job, John.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I was afraid with this new version that I had lost that I'd gotten used to in the water book, being able to just say, okay, you guys keep up, I'm writing this stuff down, and so to try to go back to that, okay, here we are, this is what we're doing, try to explain it along. It was a little tough, but I'm happy with how the book came out.
Yeah, very nice. You should be proud. Now brewing is a moving target, so have you started with the next version yet?
Well, ironically, looking at this phone book of the current version, I'm thinking I should go back and write, how to brew your first beer, like 50 pages, and that, shops can sell with a kit, for $5. Brewers Publications isn't real keen on the idea so far, but every shop I talk to likes that idea.
I like the idea. Yeah, we have a homebrew store owner right here. What do you think, Steve?
I think it's a great idea. You should definitely do that.
Oh, well, thank you.
Awesome. Well, it's always good to talk to you, John.
You too. Yeah.
All right, Steve. I think it's the loudest club night that we've been to, I think.
I believe it is definitely the loudest.
But that's a fun thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, we tried a bunch of beers, and we talked to a bunch of people, and we will continue to do so, but we're going to put this little thing to bed for the night.
That sounds like a good idea. Let's go get some food.
I appreciate your sticking with me for 12 years. This is our 12th one, and we look forward to Portland next year.
Oh, that's right, Portland. Yes, indeed. The home of the roses.
Is that right?
Yes, it's the Rose City.
Oh.
Also a beer city.
There you go.
That's why we're going there.
Maybe there'll be some beers made with roses.
You never know. Mighty like a rose.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, James.
What a lot of fun. Really. Congratulations to the organizers of the Minneapolis event on a job well done. So much work goes into these things, and if they're done right, you don't notice because things just go right, and they certainly did this year. Very impressive. Lots of great content coming your way from Minneapolis in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. It's great to be back. Even though I'm a little rusty in front of the microphone here, it's great to be back. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say Heidi, see, I'm rusty. Write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our support link where you can throw a couple of bucks into the tip jar by subscribing financially to our podcasts. Be sure to check out our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. You can find them all on our site. Get a free Basic Brewing bottle opener with any DVD combo. And you can check out our Basic Brewing shirts in the store as well. You can find our logbooks where you can track and log up to 50 batches of beer. Check all that out at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We appreciate the support there. Featured products this week that were purchased through the link are Bottoms Up in Belgium, Seeking the High Points of the Lowland, and Snake Farm. Thanks again, everybody. And remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo to our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We greatly appreciate your support. Don't forget you can also join the American Homebrewers Association and subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine through the associate links on basicbrewing.com. Well, that's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.